And I'm also like a named AI 2030 Institute scholar this year. So AI 2030 is the nonprofit organization that promote the use of generative AI and the other sorts of AI tools. And that's a place for people to have like a discussion about how AI can help people to be, more successful in their life. So today my topic is going to be focused on the bridge between learning and assessment. I'm using like a GACSS. And this is like an evidence-based approach for building and using AI-powered simulations. So you might be interested in it to know, like, what is GACSS? So GACSS is like the generative AI. Well, hold on a second. It's the generative AI clinical stakeholder simulation that I created by creating the agent on ChatGPT. And then I will show you, like in my presentation, like what this model looks like and what is the design behind it and how it can be used in being the assessment tools. I'm very interested to understand like how you might see this in your classes for your instruction of, the potential use of it. So here is the problem that everybody is not only like in healthcare, like in a lot of like disciplines we face, it's the knowing and doing gap. And we know like for the traditional assessment, for example, like multiple choice questions, NASS, so those types of assessment measure declarative knowledge. So it's basically what students know at the very low level of their cognitive skills. And then they often fail to measure the procedural or their adaptive knowledge, like what can they do with the knowledge in different contexts. And this is like a well-documented failure in a lot of literature, as we have already figured. So here's the challenge. And in health education, and we have the accreditation standards. And how can we, try to bridge assessment with learning by having everything in compliance with the accreditation standards and also those like compliance standards. So here, like in literature, we see there is a major transformation towards competency-based medical education. And nowadays, physicians like at work, they see students lack the adaptive knowledge. So they wanted the students to be trained in a way that can be contextualized in a real clinic environment. And also in literature, we see like simulation works. And we use different types of simulations. We use like augmented reality or different types of technology, or even like the role play, the very original way of like simulation. And we know there is this pain point, and we want the standardized patients. However, they are very expensive and they're time consuming, and it's very difficult to scale across the programs. So this creates a fundamental tension. We need more authentic assessment opportunities, but traditional methods cannot really meet this need. So I'm trying to think about like a new approach, as I think Blessing has mentioned that, and also many scholars have already like mentioned this as well. They say like assessment is not only assessment, it's a way of learning. So we must fundamentally reframe assessment. It's not an evaluation of learning that happens after instruction, but it is a powerful tool for authentic learning that happens like during the learning journey itself. So we can see there are three different types of places that we see like assessment can be learning, for example. So for continuous feedback, and we know like real-time responses can guide students' thinking and decision-making in the moment. And also we need the opportunity for the students to have the deep reflection, and they can analyze their performance, identify gaps, and develop metacognitive awareness by providing some guideline questions for them to follow in their reflection essay or reflection papers. And also we know like application, analysis, and the synthesis of knowledge are higher order thinking, and they need to be assessed in the complex realistic scenarios. So this new approach, seeing assessment as learning, is really like using the principles of educative assessment and formative assessment research. And this demonstrates the assessment can be like a driver of learning when we design it intentionally. So here is the GPT or the agent that I created. And I'm trying to like pilot it and try to see like how this works out to serve the purpose of learning, like assessment as learning journey. So GACSS represents the intentional design methodology here to create this realistic, persona-driven conversations that bridge the gap between traditional assessment and authentic clinical practice. So this agent is a key opportunity for the healthcare education to use emergent AI capabilities in the ways that are pedagogically sound and clinically relevant. I will show you like how I've built this GACSS as a working agent system that enables the scalable, authentic assessment of clinical competencies. Okay, so here is the model that I created. I'm trying to use this like a dual agent model. So I believe everybody now has the experience of using like any type of generative AI at this moment. So when we build an agent, we basically trying to tell this agent to perform some tasks for us. And it can be repetitive. So we don't have to like repeat sending the same prompt to this agent all the time. So I'm splitting this function into two. One is the actor agent and one is the assessor agent. So normally when we create an agent, we just give them one role. And here I give them like two roles. But these two roles cannot like, fight with each other because they have different tasks. And I need them not to talk to each other, but they need to, well, the assessor needs to assess what the student's responses to the prompt. So for the actor agent, that's basically the patient. So for this role, the primary function is to authentically embody a human patient persona from our carefully designed library. So I have this library of these patient personas created. And this actor agent has no knowledge of the assessment rubric or learning objectives. And this persona also responds naturally based only on, the characteristics, medical history, and emotional state. And it creates authentic conversational challenges that the students must navigate. So this design aligns with a lot of like literature already, like in the LLM for simulating realistic patient conversations. So that's the patient role. And another role is the assessor role, which is like how we as faculty members we are going to like grade students' conversations. So basically the primary function here is to evaluate student performance against the established competency frameworks. So this agent operates as you can imagine it as like a no-head agent that activates after the conversation concludes. So when the conversation between the patient and your students concludes. And for this part, it analyzes the complete transcript against our competency rubric, and it provides detailed evidence-based feedback on specific competencies, and also generates scores and justifications for each assessed domain. So basically, this is like how this works. And I will show you one persona that I created in this agent. So this is Mr. Mullins. And then I put this persona to this person as like stoic skeptic. So when the students is asking questions and this person is basically is trying to behave as the stoic skeptic. And there will be like a rounds of conversations going on here. And the evidence base here is actually, we see the virtual patients are a valid and effective tool for assessing complex clinical reasoning and communication skills. So with the rounds of conversation between the student and also Mr. Mullins, and actually we are assessing students' capability to deal with the adaptive challenges in the real clinical practice. And here is another persona that I created. So this is like an overwhelmed parent. And so students are going to have a conversation with this persona, and the agent is going to throw more questions to the students based on the answers. And this is the third. So I'm just sharing like briefly how these personas are like, and then what is the design rationale behind it. And I'm going to show you like how this looks like in the ChatGPT platform in a second. So after talking about the persona, and this is the assessor agent. So there are two agents. One is the one is the persona, the patient, and then one is the assessor. So see here, and that's the text of these like competencies that you can put in. So this is something that I put like as the rubrics for evaluating students' conversations. And towards the end of the conversation, I'm hoping students can get like a 5 out of 5, covering empathy, decision making, and competency in general. Okay, so let me just move this away. I'm gonna show you what I have here. So this is how it looks like when the conversation like continues. Let me just see if I can just, let me do this first. Okay, so this is the GPT student-facing interface. And so that's the name of this GPT. And then this is like the brief description of it. So when students are on this page, they see the description, they will, try to put start with David. And then the conversation will start. And now this is like what the GPT is talking to me as if this is David. All right, so let me just pull out what I did the other day. That's the history of this conversation. So as you can see, starting with Mr. Mullins, and then there can be different scenarios. So it's kind of like imagining your students is having a conversation with this like patient in the clinic. So I said, what can I do for you? And then this person like reacts like, some complaints about, the coughing thing. And then the blue box is my like a text that I put in here. So it's kind of like my thoughts of like how to react to the real person's response. So this conversation like continues until like there are several rounds of conversation. So students in this process can continue the conversation, but it doesn't necessarily, to continue as long as he wants. You can give students the flexibility or the requirements of like how many rounds of the chats can be, or if students think that they have achieved to the point that they are successful in achieving the goal in getting the information or having a successful conversation with this patient, the students can say end conversation. So that's the trigger to end agent one. So now agent one doesn't really perform anything. And then it's going to be the second patient coming onto the stage to have the conversation. It's about the same thing, but I made them to choose like one of the followings. So it's 5 personas, and they need to do 3 out of 5, like based on their interests. And they don't know anything about these patients' background before they start the conversation. So towards the end, I'm going to show you here. See, oh, this is already. Okay, so this is the end of a conversation of all the 3 simulations. And now the GPT is saying, you now have completed all 3 simulations. And now I will analyze your performance and generate your report. So this is agent 2, the assessor. So your faculty role shows up. So that's the analysis of this student's performance. Like simulation 1, there is competency 1, like focused on empathy and validation, and this is the score and the justification. And then competency 2 focused on patient education and clarity, and competency 3 is focused on the shared decision making. So all these performance-based assessment is built upon the transcript the students generates with the bot here. And then this is simulation 2, and then this is simulation 3. So what I see here, it's a way of getting students to really talk to the real person, the so-called real person. So their performance can be evaluated based on the rubric that you design, you want the agent, to follow. So this actually kind of like solves the problem of the scaling up. Like if you have so many students in your class, how am I gonna grade each of the students based on the scenario-based evaluation? So this is the place that you can either like have the students do in class, for example, as the practice. So you have the time to set for the students to let them work on this, and then you could just walk around them and try to observe how they throw questions, how do they start the conversation. And actually, when they put in the words in the chat box, that takes time for them to think it through. And it's different than the way they talk to the patient. Because when you talk, and you might just like talk quickly, and the response is usually like faster. But when you type, that takes more like a cognitive processing for the students to think about, okay, the wording and what I have already learned from this professor or from these standards, from these content. Like, what about the wording that I want to like be careful about in order to kind of like show my empathy to the patient while, I also like help the faculty to believe that I'm with him or her to make the decisions together. So that type of, pedagogy is kind of like a hidden in this design. Well, so this is like how it looks like for the interface. I will just move this away and then get back to my slide. So I'm trying to think about, like when I designed this, because I'm like a learning scientist, I always like to try to build everything on the theoretical foundation. And I think this also like echoes the last things part of the presentation as well. So I also like built this model on this situated cognition theory. So students really like, take on the practice, like in the authentic context of a conversation. And we know, like for the visual simulations, like when you have the words down there, and when you have the students to analyze their transcript, and then they see what they have said. So it's kind of like the training for them to reflect on the conversations that they have with the patient. So as I mentioned, this can be a practice if you want to on grading. And if you want to like really use it as the grading part, and you can just have the students to use it after class, or you can like co-develop the rubric with the students as well, or have the students to join you to create more personas in the library of your personas. And also like a virtual patients are like a valid tool for assessing clinical reasoning. So the reasoning part is really the key point here in this conversation. So students really can go through it line by line to see what is going on. And this is where faculty members can also like step in and then try to explain things from their clinical experience to the students. So I think this is my last slide. And I want everyone to think about, some ideas to start from today. So like how would you like to like apply this to your work? Even if you don't want to create an agent, even if you just create a prompt, for example, for your student, or let your students create a prompt. Let your students to think about like how to create like a persona, and then let the students to document their patients' personas, like in their clinical experience, internship, or experiential learning experiences. So try to gather as many personas as they can so that they can deal with the experience, like they really can adapt the knowledge from the books, from the PowerPoint slides to the real life problems. So that's, something that I like to see, like how people are using. And thank you for your time to listen to this. And I just created this um, not a long time ago. And so it's still like testing and piloting. I'm also like inviting people who are interested, to, work with me as well. If you are interested in this, we can try to test it with your students. Here is my information. You can contact me by, connect me on LinkedIn. You can scan this and try to connect with me, or this is the email that I put here. You can write to me and we can, explore things that can really help students to learn the real life skills instead of, those knowledge check things. And that's it.
That was fascinating. Thank you so much. Um, and for your willingness to share. I'm sure you'll be getting emails from people. I'm curious about how much time it took to train the agent on the personas, on the different patients.
Well, here, let me just well, it does take some time, but it doesn't really take as much time as I can, well, I think it's much shorter than what I thought. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
basically, yeah. So I have this like a life. I think that the time that I spent most is on building the personas instead of like a training, the agent, because the agent is designed in a way to react to the library of the personas. So I really like did a lot of research, like like a situated learning, the scenarios, the patients, in a lot of like best practices. So I pull out those scenarios, and then for those, and I kind of like categorize those personas, and then worked with ChatGPT, not an agent, just like a ChatGPT with my prompt, to let my ChatGPT help me to come up with this library of these personas. So that really took me a long time, to work on. But when I built the agent, let me just share the good news. It doesn't really take that much time. And if we have time, or if we have like another um, workshop, and I will just like share with you like how I built it. It's like step by step, process. Um, it sounds something far away that you cannot reach. I'm telling you, I'm not computer science background. And my background is instructional design technologies. So I knew nothing about like machine learning, but as long as you follow your way of thinking, like how this can help your students do, and how you can use this tool to help your students to succeed. And then you can use the same logic to make, the agent to perform what you want your students to do. So Yeah, so it's not really that hard. So, don't worry about that at all. And
Yes.
yeah.
That will be
So,
really comforting to people, I think, and
mm-hmm. Yeah.
encourage folks to give it a try themselves.
Yeah.
Really interesting work. Thank you.
You're very welcome. It's very
Taking,
happy to share, what I have here. And I like to hear what people's feedback, insights about it as well.
yes, and if you open your chat, you'll see some of people's thoughts on what you've shared. It's great. Rachel suggesting maybe adding a reflective activity following the interaction, or
Mm-hmm.
perhaps you already do
Yeah.
that. I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, this hasn't been added to this agent yet, but that's a good idea. I
yeah.
think, but so far we can have the students reflect on the, conversation between them and also the agent. But also I think it would be cool to add another agent, um, just to try to see like how students can reflect on what they did. And
Mhm.
then it's gonna be like a continued conversation for students to kind of like try to, develop their like metacognition as well.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, Rachel. This is great. Susanna, you have a
Wonderful.
question.
Yeah, sorry, Deb, I was raising my
No,
hand.
it's
I
fine.
have some questions here. First of all, it is so relieving to know that it's not as complicated because if anything, adding some more work into healthcare
Mm-hmm.
instructors, it really is something that the healthcare system is navigating within. I have a comment and I have a question. The comment is, I think there is some potential for this specific piloting to use what Soha was recommending in terms of adding the reflections of our students. So for example, so when the students on a course are coming with their personal experience, they can add and impersonate a persona, and then a
Mm-hmm.
course can create this persona, right? That's the thinking that I was having, like the
Mm,
students
yeah.
actually
Mm-hmm.
informing the persona
Right.
and creating the real scenarios even more real.
Right.
That's my comment. And then my question goes into, is it, I know that all this technology, and sorry, I'm not into technology at all, but this is more writing, right? But
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that Blessing was discussing is that this discussion piece of decreasing the barriers for someone who might have some issues, for example, with writing,
Right.
second
Right.
language,
Mm-hmm.
English as a second language, or
Mm-hmm.
right? Is this possible that these personas can be also an audio? Because I saw at the bottom that there is an option for writing and there is an option for audio as well. Is
Mm-hmm.
that something that a program like this can generate?
I think it might be possible. It might,
Okay.
but I
Yeah.
haven't like explored that yet, so I cannot really give
Yeah.
you a definite answer, but I can definitely write this down for
Hmm.
accessibility,
Yeah.
reason
Hmm.
that I can just try to explore to see what are
Yeah.
some other alternative
Yeah.
formats such
Hmm.
as like audio, yeah,
Yeah.
recording, that type of thing. Yeah,
Yeah. And my question
definitely.
comes from my own positionality as a midwife too. Like most of the time we care for clients that are in very vulnerable positions, or their
Mm-hmm.
wording, the way they talk is not as
Right.
very neutral tone, right? Like especially if they're
Mm-hmm.
in labor, there is very high
Yeah.
pitch or crying,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
those kind of things is also part of the
Mm-hmm.
communication skills, decision
Yeah.
making, like how to tailor the plan of care that you want to provide to your
Mm-hmm.
clients. So I was just questioning, again, I'm not a tech person, but maybe I'm asking too much, but
Well,
that
this
is
is
something
great,
that,
wonderful. I
yeah.
think that gives like a more like a complicated like a scenario for the
Hmm.
personas. I will
Yeah.
definitely consider that in the
Hmm.
next version of it when I upload it.